So an awful lot of mid-range smartphones have launched here in the UK these last couple of weeks. You've got, of course, the likes of the OnePlus Nord, the Moto G5G Plus, and the Google Pixel 4a. It's finally actually a thing that launched yesterday. Go check out my full unboxing if you haven't already. No, don't if you don't want to. You don't need some bald guy on the internet bossing you about. And a surprising number of these mid-range mobiles do actually come with 5G built in as well, as does the TCL 10 5G, as the name kind of obviously gives away. And while the TCL name may not have the clout of a OnePlus or a Pixel in the smartphone world, they've definitely got plenty of mobile know-how, and the TCL 10 5G certainly seems to pack some really solid specs and some really slick design for a sub £400 price point. But that's enough of me banging on anyway. Let's get the TCL 10 5G all unboxed, take you on a full-on tour of the hardware and the software, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers. So there is the TCL 10 5G in all of its greatness. Let's see what else you get in the box first. So first of all, of course, you've got your Pokey Pin device for actually getting your SIM in the TCL 10 5G. And it will probably double as a cute little sword for a hamster's Halloween costume. And pretty much all budget and mid-range smartphones now come with a bundled condom case as well, which you can just wrap around it to add a bit of extra protection. Definitely a good little bonus. You've got a USB cable, Type-C. And of course, here in the UK, at least, you get a bundled 3-pin adapter with hilarious pop-up action. And now here is the TCL 10 5G fully unsheathed, and you can actually pick it up in a couple of different colours. This is unfortunately the rather bland mercury grey, but you can also pick it up in chrome blue if you prefer. Bland is probably a little bit harsh. It does look rather smart, I've got to say. I do still like that horizontal strip for the camera action as well. It just makes a change, if nothing else, from the old vertical camera arrays. You've got this kind of neat gradient effect as well, starts off darker at the top and sort of lightens in tone as you move down towards the bottom end. And the TCL 10 5G is constructed from glass, and I tell you what, it's got a bit of a heft to it as well. 210 grams, definitely right up there. I'm glad I've been building up my biceps in this lockdown hell. And I believe that it's constructed from Gorilla Glass front and back as well, just like the TCL 10 Pro, which I recently reviewed. They don't expressly say that in the press specs, unfortunately, but they do say that it's scratch resistant, so I'd be surprised if it wasn't. And good to see a rear-mounted fingerprint sensor back in play as well, almost flush with the surface, just indented enough so you can hopefully find it no problem with your finger when you're fumbling about round back. And other notable design features include a headphone jack up top. Quite a lot of budget to mid-range smartphones do still sport those, and you do have a dedicated Google Assistant button over here on the left edge as well. Oh, and also when you come to stick your SIM card inside, it is just a single SIM tray here. Unfortunately, you don't get a dual SIM effort, but you do have a micro SD memory card space, so you can boost that 128 gigs of internal storage by a further terabyte, which is lovely. So boom, the TCL 10 5G all set up and ready for action. And what you got here is a good old Android 10, but it's not the stock version of Android 10. What you've actually got is the TCL UI slathered on top, very imaginatively titled there. And this launcher does change up the look and the feel of Android in a few different departments, but thankfully you do get all the standard Android features on there, such as, of course, a good bit of dark mode action, which you can actually schedule to turn on and off at set times. And you can also get rid of this clunky old nav bar down at the bottom as well and just go back to good old gesture navigations, the standard Android 10 efforts, or swipe like so to get around. And buttloads of other bonus features in there as well, including a dedicated one-handed mode. This can be accessed at any point by pulling down that notifications bar, going into the shortcut section, and as you can see, there's an icon for it. And since the TCL 10 5G is a complete beast, that's definitely going to come in very handy indeed. And as I mentioned before, dedicated Google Assistant key on the side here as well, so give that a poke and up she pops. And good to see the Google Assistant understands me as much as anyone else does. Now we'll cover some of the other TCL UI features as we're going through, but let's turn our attention to a bit of hardware, specifically that behemoth 6.53-inch IPS screen. And sure, it may not be an OLED screen unlike the OnePlus Nord and the Google Pixel 4a, but you know what? For an IPS, it's not bad at all. You got full HD plus resolution, so those visuals are nice and crisp. Certainly no issues with viewing angles or anything. On top brightness, it'll just about deal with some pretty harsh outdoor lighting too. I believe the spec said it was 450 nits at that maximum level, and the colours aren't super punchy, sure, but you know what? They look perfectly natural, they look nice. They definitely don't appear washed out or anything like that. So yeah, certainly for, kicking about with a bit of Netflix, something like that, it'll do the job. And at least it's just a single dinky little pinhole orifice down here in the bottom corner as well, which barely intrudes on the action, unlike some of the big fat mamas we've had recently. I'm definitely liking the contrast here on the TCL 10 5G as well. Those blacks are looking pretty deep. And as you can see there, you've got full HDR support, in fact, in the likes of Netflix. You can really take advantage of that sharp contrast contrast and natural looking colours. And part of the TCL UI features, of course, include the Next Vision feature as well, which just adds, as you can see, a few little display-based features, including the visual enhancement. This just helps to brighten things up a bit, boost the clarity, basically, if you're trying to watch something that's really sort of moody and dark, especially if you're trying to watch it in quite a brightly lit room. You've got the SDR to HDR up converter as well. And you can also mess around to a limited degree with the colour output as well. It's set to adaptive by default, but you guys, you can see, you make things a bit warmer, a bit cooler, and you've got the usual night mode shenanigans and everything on board as well. On the sound front, there's less customization, as you can see, no support for Dolby Atmos, no form of equalizers or anything to piddle about with, but what you do get is full super Bluetooth support, which is supposed to have an incredible range. I think it's about 400 meters or something, and also support for up to 4 pairs of headphones or speakers at once as well. So it's good if you're having a party, you want to pump up music to lots of speakers around a garden or a house, and support for high-res audio and everything as well. So definitely sorted if you're a bit of an audiophile. And just as good news if you're a bit of a gaming fan, you like a bit of Call of Duty, PubG Mobile, or something like that, because it's the Snapdragon 765G chipset on board here, which I've already played around with on the likes of the OnePlus Nord and the Realme X50 5G. 6 gigs of RAM on here as well, so you should find that performance is nice and smooth for your everyday shenanigans, even if you're running quite a few apps at once, you know, streaming media in the background, stuff like that. Fun that delivers absolutely stunning performance, even on the likes of Call of Duty, on that maximum detail level and maximum frame rate setting as well. And if you dive on into the advanced features, you'll see you've got the game mode as well, which standard sort of game mode shenanigans. You can block notifications and thankfully disable the smart key and other bits as well, so you're not accidentally quitting out of your game. You've got a game turbo performance boost feature, not that you'll need that anytime soon on the 765G, and a good bit of network optimization as well, so it just ensures that no other pesky apps are nicking all your precious bandwidth. And battery life too should be perfectly respectable. Certainly doesn't seem to be draining particularly fast, even though, you know, I've had apps downloading in the background, all that kind of shenanigans. Where is actually the battery section? I can never find it on this stupid UI. There it is, Smart Manager staring me right in the face. So what you get packed inside is a 4,500 milliamp cell, so quite a generous size of battery. So yes, it should hopefully keep you going all day, and when it is time to recharge, you do get quick charge 3.0 support. It's 18 watt, it's not super fast, you know, quite a lot of mid-rangers now they support 30 watt, again the likes of the OnePlus Nord, but you know, it'll do the job. And you've got the usual battery optimization options and all the rest. But of course, as always, stay tuned for my in-depth TCL 10 5G review for all you need to know about the battery life, the performance and everything else. And let's finish up with a squint at the TCL 10 5G's camera tech, and what you get is a quad lens arrangement, as you can see in that funky nifty horizontal style design. And what you got is a 64 megapixel primary lens, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle, 5 megapixel macro, hooray, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. And as usual with TCL, it is a fairly complex camera app. As you can see, there are lots of different options and toggles to play around with. For the most part, you can ignore this top stuff. It's all to do with like the flash, the HDR level, the aspect ratio. You've got a bunch of filters that you can play around with if your heart so desires. And it's worth mentioning as well that the TCL 10 5G does actually shoot images in 16 megapixel resolution by default using 4-in-1 pixel binning, but you can swap to that maximum 64 megapixel level if you want by diving into the bonus modes. You've got a digital zoom that you can play around with here on the right, because of course there's no actual telephoto zoom, and then swap to the ultra wide angle lens with a quick tap down there. And so far it seems alright, to be fair. It's quite ambient light, shall we say, here in the studio, so sometimes you get quite grainy results with mid-range mobiles, but this actually appears to be fairly sharp detail. Natural looking colours and everything as well. And you do of course have that depth sensor for your portrait shots as well, so you can just accurately lock onto your subject and just adds a nice bokeh style effect in the background. And as you can see, you can set the level of bokeh action by playing around with this fake aperture setting. If you want to make the UI even more complicated, you can switch to the dedicated Pro mode, and then you can play around with the likes of the ISO level, the white balance, all that kind of stuff. And it's also not just any ordinary night mode here on the TCL 10 5G, it's a super night mode, no less. You just give that little tap, as you can see, it takes lots of different exposure shots, bungs them all together, and the result, as you can see there, is a significant improvement compared with that original shot. It has really dulled down actually the light in the background there. The rest of it's nicely balanced though, as you can see, a lot more background information than what we got before. And for your bit of home movie action as well, you can swap to video. Let's dive into the settings. It's set to 1080p by default as usual. You can bump up to 4K, not at 60 FPS there. You've got to shoot at full HD if you want that. And then lastly, if we swap around to the 16 megapixel front facing camera, hopefully it should be absolutely fine, and just be a standard everyday selfies. And I already look like I've downed a vodka shake or two right there. I'm looking a lot happier than I feel. And using that selfie cam, of course, you can shoot up to full HD video. You got that portrait mode as well if you want to blur out the background and make it all about you, baby, yeah. And that right there in a nutshell is the TCL 10 5G. So stay tuned for my in-depth review for all you need to know about, as I say, the performance, the battery life, if there's any little quirks in there or anything. £400, definitely some decent specs and features, but is it a true rival to the likes of the OnePlus Nord and the Pixel 4a? It'd be great to hear your own personal impressions of it down below. Please do poke, subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a lovely rest of the week. Oh, and if you are watching this as it's going live as well, stay tuned tomorrow for a load of Samsung shenanigans. That's going to be keeping me up nice and late. Come on, Totoro mate, time to do one. Bye-bye.